Hello, I'm State Senator John Kavanagh with another edition of Kavanagh's Corner, my legislative constituent report, this one for the week of March 27th, 2023. Let's begin with my Senate Judiciary Committee bill on street encampments, safety, and health requirements. There are some horrible street homeless encampments popping up, particularly in Phoenix. One in particular is horrendous. It is right near the Capitol, and there are over 1,000 people in perhaps 700-800 tents and tarps and lean-tos, living like animals with no sanitation, no policing. The area is full of crime. Gangs extort money from these homeless people. They defecate and urinate in the streets. There's prostitution, theft. It's a real nightmare. My bill basically says that if a municipality allows this to exist or actually sets it up, they must provide minimum health and safety requirements in terms of portable toilets, hand washing station, and if enough people get there, showers, and finally, if enough people are there, 24/7 police protection. I don't condone these street encampments. I think they should be shut down. I think Phoenix should provide enough regular shelter beds so that if a person refuses to go to a regular shelter, they will be arrested. But that's not happening because of a federal court decision and Phoenix's refusal to provide enough shelter beds. So until that actually happens, I think if they're going to put these in neighborhoods where they disrupt people's lives and they destroy businesses, at the very least, let's have some safety and sanitation requirements so it's not the black hole of Calcutta. In Senate third read, I had my bill, SB 1588, Criminal Justice Data Collection Systems, pass out. This is a bill that will provide monies for the collection of criminal justice data on arrests and court cases and probation and prison so that researchers and legislators can get good, solid information on exactly what's happening in the criminal justice system concerning crime and criminals to make better policies. Moving along, in the House of Representatives Laura Committee, I had passed a bill that will create a study committee for animal control standards. The Maricopa County Dog Pound is in disarray. It started 6 or 7 months ago. Volunteers were leaving. It was overcrowded. It was a real mess. And I convened a stakeholders group of people involved with this, especially people in the humane animal community, to try to come up with some reasonable standards for these public dog pounds, although they take cats in too. And it's a big, complex issue, so we're going to bring in people from all areas of this problem, from the dog catcher to people who operate the pounds, to humane animal shelter providers, to veterinarians, to try to come up with some reasonable standards so that we can have a good system statewide. In the House Military Affairs and Public Safety Committee, they passed out my bill, SB 1068, which deals with the emergency treatment of injured police dogs. I was informed that several states had passed legislation that ambulance shall transport to veterinary facilities injured police dogs, like SWAT dogs that are shot or otherwise injured by criminals, but only if a human being doesn't need the ambulance. So if the ambulance is free, they would, along with the police officer, they would be able to transport the dog and get the dog treatment. These dogs are putting their own safety on the line to protect us from dangerous criminals, often in hostage situations. In the House Education Committee, my SB 1040, public school restrooms, locker rooms, showers, reasonable accommodation. This bill is very simple. It says that in K-12 public schools, the locker rooms, bathrooms, shower areas, and if it's an overnight trip, the room where kids stay must only contain people of the same biological gender at birth. However, my bill also says that students who will not or cannot abide by this, and we're talking now about transgendered students, students of one biological gender who identify as the opposite, that schools must make reasonable accommodations for these students, which would usually be a single user facility or blocking off a specific time in the other facilities for their use. But the bottom line is this: I don't want to see a 14-year-old female high school freshman being forced to stand in the school shower next to an 18-year-old biological male who thinks or identifies as female. That's not right, and I'm not going to let it happen. Moving to the House Judiciary Committee, my SB 1291 concerning guardianships and conservatorships procedures passed out. This deals with people who are not able to make their own decisions because of a medical emergency, a stroke, or it could be a young child who can't make their own decisions. These people are put under the control of a conservator by the courts, and this is pretty involved. These conservators control the finances, the property, the medical decisions of the people who are incapable of doing it. This bill provides certain safeguards to protect the person whose affairs are being managed, to make sure that they're fully informed of their rights, of what's happening to them, and especially that any health directives or other legal papers that they sign while they were still competent are respected by the conservator. Moving to the House Government and Appropriations Committee, SB 1041 is an appropriation for cybersecurity software. A lot of private companies and governments are being hacked, and people's sensitive financial and privacy information is being stolen. We spend a lot of money to secure our computer programs, and what this bill does is it requires the government agencies to give their computer systems stress tests, to have trained people try to break into them to see how strong they are, and if weaknesses are found, how to correct them. Moving over to the House Military Affairs Committee and Elections Committee, SB 1135, spoiled early ballots. This will allow you, if you requested a mail-in ballot and haven't mailed it in by Election Day, to walk into a polling place, and if you want, for the security of knowing your vote was taken, you can hand in your early ballot, be given a regular election ballot, and vote like it's a regular in-person election. In addition, my bill would not allow any county recorder to sign up and participate in any kind of a nationwide voter data collection system that releases data which by Arizona law should not be released, and which conducts voter registration drives that we have not approved here in Arizona. These groups often take public data, like people on welfare or getting food stamps, and then they go out and they try to register them to the vote. This is like putting your thumb on the scale, because these people generally tend to vote Democrat, and it's not right for public monies and resources to be spent to have a slanted, partisanship-wise campaign to enroll voters. Also, SB 1471, ballot tabulation hand count comparison. That's moved out of committee and will now go to the final vote in the House. And this very simply would have Maricopa County randomly select 400 ballots. They would take those 400 ballots and they would run them through a machine tabulator, and then using the current procedure, which involves volunteers who are chosen by the Democrat and Republican parties to do a hand count of those ballots. And the hand count will be timed, and after it's finished, we'll be able to compare the tabulations for each office and referendum or initiative, the counts between the machine and the hand count to see if they're different. If they're different, this means that one of them is not accurate. So what we will then do is have a second machine count those ballots, and a new group of hand counters count the ballots, and we'll then be able to compare the totals between the first and second machine, the first hand count group and the second group, to find out which is a match and which isn't. And this will tell us which technique is more accurate in terms of getting the right count. And because we're timing the hand counters, we would be able to find out how many hand counters it takes to count how many ballots per hour. This would allow us to figure out how many hand counting teams statewide would we need in a real statewide election to get all the ballots counted within a reasonable time frame. It's SB 1009. This was third read in House, so it's going up to the governor. Criminal damage to monuments and memorials. Several years ago, when riots overtook our country, associated with Black Lives Matter demonstrations followed by riots, people were toppling the statues of public figures that they did not like. That's not the way you enact change in government. If you think a public statue to somebody is inappropriate, then you go to the governing body and get them to remove it. You don't go out there at night and topple and destroy it. And this particular bill will enhance the penalty for those who damage or destroy such memorials. Also, my SB 1270 open meetings capacity law was passed out of the House. It's on its way up to the governor. And this very simply says that any government entity that has a public meeting, when they announce the agenda, have to tell people what time the meeting occurs and what time they're going to open the doors. I had a situation where I went to a controversial meeting in the Scottsdale School District to protest their mask policy during COVID. Got there half hour early, only to be told that the room was already full. Had I known that the doors were opening a half hour early, I would have gotten there earlier because I wanted to speak. In addition, I discovered that they chose a very small meeting room, even though they expected a very large crowd of irate parents. So the second part of this bill says that if a school board has a larger room and they expect a larger crowd, they must use the larger room. Let's talk about bills signed by the governor. I had two bills signed by the governor. The one involves the setting aside of convictions. Certain people are eligible after they're convicted of a crime if they can prove that they've been reformed, paid their debt to society, and it wasn't a serious crime, to have the conviction record erased. They made a mistake the first time they passed this, and they said you could only have one misdemeanor in your life erased, but as many felonies as you want. That is the exact reverse of what it was supposed to be, and this changes it to be the right way. And then I had one of my HOA bills passed, signed by the governor. This is the Homeowners Association's Betsy Ross flag. Every year I run at least one bill to stop abusive behavior by rogue HOA boards that are persecuting their members. We passed a law that said HOA members can fly American flags on their property, and this HOA told a woman she could not fly the Betsy Ross flag. Well, the Betsy Ross flag is an approved version of the American flag, so they shouldn't have done that. So just to clarify for these rogue HOA boards, the law that was now signed says that any version of an American flag, including an HOA flag, can be flown by somebody in a homeowners association. Unfortunately, I had one bill vetoed by Governor Hobbs this week, although she's already vetoed, I think, 15 of my bills, so I'm actually in the lead. But in any event, SB 1024, Public Rights of Way Unlawful Acts. As you probably know from the news accounts, there are homeless encampments popping up in the streets all over the state, but especially in Phoenix, where one rogue homeless encampment with over 1,000 people is festering in the downtown Phoenix area. And these people are living in tents and tarps over shopping carts and refrigerator boxes on the street. They're in the street, on the curb, on the sidewalk. This is wrong. People shouldn't live in the gutter. And my bill simply said that statewide, nobody can erect a tent or similar place to reside temporarily in a roadway or public right-of-way. You would think that everybody, including the governor, would agree with me that people should not live in the gutter, but apparently not, because Governor Hobbs vetoed my bill that made that illegal. So that's it for this week's Kavanagh's Corner. Again, there are still a lot of bills going through the legislature, and the governor, of course, is having many bills sent up to her. So we'll probably have more bills signed and, unfortunately, more bills vetoed. And I'll be here to keep you up on what's happening at the Capitol. I'm State Senator John Kavanagh with another edition of Kavanagh's Corner. Thanks for watching.